Now I have your background in my slides. That is awesome. All right, so now I have to go really, really fast. And nobody really cares who I am, so I'm skipping that entire part. Getting right to the point. I get asked a lot of questions. I used to do a bunch of open source stuff. I don't do as much anymore. That's the truth. I've been gone for a little while. So last night at the bar, I got asked these 3 questions. And question number 1 was, during this entire freaking debacle, where can you tweet or write complaints to? So any of those will do. In fact, my company sent a handler. Brad, where are you? Right, Brad's right here. He's that close. He's ready to just jump on stage and kill me for what I say. And question number 2 is, where the hell have I been? That's a great question. Being awesome, which is living the dream. Basically, models and bottles, bitches. And guys, I don't mean these kind of models. I mean the kind of models ladies love, like that. And I love ladies that love those models. It's amazing. But we've been traveling around the world and doing a lot of stuff. And one of the things I mentioned last night, which is going to be a brief interim from the open source rant, because it's not going to be a keynote, it's going to be a rant, that I do, is I also invented a mind control skateboard. It took me a while, but it worked out great. And nobody believed me, so I got called out and asked to bring a video. So I told Todd, I'm going to play a 3-minute video for you guys, and then I'll make a comment on it. So no shit, I have a video. We get a little more volume. Perfect.
Polly had clearly been blown away by Metropolis 2, but back at Venice Beach, I was about to try the most exciting bit of technology of our world tour so far. A mind-controlled skateboard.
Whurley, how you doing, man?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm very excited.
Are
What
you
was
ready
that?
for
Was that a
this?
little thing with the...
That was a little thing. That's a secret mind control handshake. So you ready to try this?
Random coincidence that he was bald.
That's right. So let me tell you a little bit about it. This board has a 800-watt motor. It's got 3 motorcycle batteries in it, basically, generating 36 volts. It's got a Samsung tablet here and this emotive headset. We're going to put this on your head, and we're going to try to train your brain and the board to connect. Once we do that, hopefully, when you think, kind of imagine where you want to go, the board is going to take you off in that direction.
Okay, so when I'm imagining where I want to go, what's happening?
We're picking up the electrical patterns and basically the neurons as they're firing in there and converting that into commands for the board. So you want to do a little training?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let me get this on you.
Okay. Thanks, man.
So I'm getting a great signal.
Okay. You're getting a good signal.
I'm getting a good
from my
signal
head.
from your head. Actually, maybe a little too much signal.
Really?
You have too much brain power for the board to handle. It might not be
I
able
love
to
this. I love
compute
this.
it.
There was one real-world problem, though. The headset had been designed specifically and exclusively for Whurley's brain.
Before we start, I think it's only fair to tell you the chances of you getting this board to go anywhere are astronomical.
And as I began, Whurley's doubts seemed to be confirmed.
Nope. Nothing. Try again.
Ready?
Go! You've got nothing. If you get distracted, if you look at a pretty girl, if you start thinking, oh, this is too fast, if you think, oh my
Who's
God,
that dog?
The golden
Yeah.
retrievers are notorious
too.
for distracting mind-controlled skateboards. It happens all the time.
But then, something happened.
There you go, you've almost got it. That's it, you were doing it. Don't get distracted.
Brilliant! Brilliant!
But that was nothing compared to what I did next.
That's amazing! You think forward about launching yourself forward, and if you get it right, it starts to move. It's incredible. It's like something out of a science fiction movie. It's comic book craziness. Wow!
The top speed of this is about 32 miles an hour. Man up. Let's put it on high.
What are you like? 32 miles an hour on a brain-controlled skateboard. That's a speed limit where I live. That's in fact, I'll get a ticket. Go on, then, let's do it. Switch it up, baby.
Let's do it. You ready?
Switch it up.
Initially, my nerves about the impending speed were so fired up, I just couldn't concentrate my mind.
Confidence. You've got this.
But then...
That's it. That's it. Come on. Come on. Keep going. Hold that thought. Don't look at me. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Now you can stop.
I'm so focused, I can't stop.
You are the first person, my friend, outside of me, on planet Earth to ride a mind control skateboard. Number 1.
Oh, man, that makes me feel really good.
Next
Seriously.
step, hoverboard.
Yeah, you need to do that.
I'm living in the future. I've arrived. I've been waiting for this since the 80s.
And with that, I thought my way off into the sunset. A beautiful end to the third day of our Californian road trip.
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, thanks. Who is clapping for that? Excuse me. I love you. First of all, there's a point to that video, which is software is supposed to be magic. Second of all, we open source that, all 28 lines of code. So it wasn't really rocket science or neuroscience either. And it's not a parlor trick, it actually works. But I show that not just because of the bar last night, I show that because it's really important because, there's a couple things I'm going to get to, and like I said, prepare yourselves. I'm going to say this 3 times before I start. This is 2. It's going to be a rant, because I'm really disappointed in almost all of you. It's horrible. We also built a couple mobile apps. That's great. But the question I get asked the most, which is the question you're all asking right now to yourselves inside, using your inside voice, is question number 3. Anybody know what question number 3 is? Show of hands? Guesses? No?
What would you say you do here?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. That's for one. That's a great fucking question. But I have some questions for you guys, and I'll rocket through those because there's 3 questions I have for you, which is question number 1. Right? Seriously? Somebody asked me that last night, and I was like, is he still alive? He's a great guy. I love him, but that's where you end up. It's horrible. You can laugh. It's not like the old days of open source where somebody berated you later, and if they do, just come find me. Question number 2 is, what the hell's the open source tea party? Did any of you guys hear about this? So that's weird. That sounds great, but apparently mirror issues. And question number 3, how did you guys let this guy build the world's largest open source company? I think Mattisei, and so what I did is, this is sort of clever, I said, wait, didn't Mattisei say that? And then I said, that sounds like something I solved with the regex once. It was like that whole the close you don. But here's my question for you. What the fuck, open source? I've only been gone for 3 years. I left you alone with such simple things. And last night I got asked the exact same questions I got asked 3 years ago. It was like I was in a fucking time machine. It was the same things. And I thought, how am I going to communicate this today? Because to have a rant, you still have to have context, right? Context is really important. And then it hit me. Sex. It's not funny. This is serious. And I thought about that. And I thought about open source. And then I thought about sex in open source. And then I tried to rephrase it several times. Open source sex sounds maybe interesting, but maybe not. I don't know. And then I thought sex plus open source, and then there were all these variants, and then I put it in some brackets. I thought, well, that's probably the best one for this. But here's the reality. Ladies, just so you know, because I told, the guys, I will not be harassed by you on stage. So this is not an opportunity for any big data jokes, any size jokes. Please, leave those to yourself. I want to talk about the difference, and this is the difference. Sex is that thing all of you do and none of you fucking talk about, where in the enterprise, open source is that thing I'm not convinced any of you do, and it's all you talk about incessantly. And it drives me fucking mad. Seriously. So I thought I'd lay down the same thing I said 10 years ago, and that's going to be to break things into 3 simple things we can talk about. And the first one is conformity versus community. When I was at IBM in 1997 doing open source stuff, I got asked a question. I got promoted from engineer to manager. And the question was this: do you want to be a manager, or do you want to do what managers do? And I was like, that's a trick question. It's like one of those Google interview questions. I didn't know how to handle it. And my mentor, Tom Bishop, what he explained to me was this, that there's having manager on your business card, and then there's taking care of an employee whose wife just got an illness and the benefits don't cover it, or running through reports and doing all of the crap work that managers have to do, right? And so it's the same thing with open source. There's a difference between saying, I do open source. What does that mean? Your web server runs Apache? Somebody programmed something for you in Ruby, which, by the way, Ruby on Rails is the effective same thing as saying like Cobalt, that's cool or something. In 1997, it ran all of the banks in Japan. And it's a great framework, and I appreciate that. But we celebrate these minor victories in open source. And by the way, if you go Google the news from now, take any news title, and I did this last night as a challenge for you, take that news title, Google it, and then add the date, 2009 or 2006, you'll see a story that is frighteningly similar. So-and-so took $20 million to do an open source project. What the fuck do you need $20 million for? You know, Matt Assay said Facebook's the biggest company. 2009, he said it was Google. All of these things are the same, and I'm not beating Matt up. I love all of you guys. But I thought when I went to try to be an entrepreneur, which is very hard and means that you can't have a significant other or life or anything if you do it right, I thought open source was like on this great path. In fact, I at the time thought open source was on this path to where it would just not be even considered. It would just be the way everything was done. Because software is software is software, period. You know, and we have to stop differentiating. It's not about the software, it's about the community. It's about what you do and who you do it with and how you collaborate. If you think about it, proprietary and open source software both have licenses, they both have to be compiled on and on and on and on. It's not a type of software, it's not a point in a software's life cycle, it's a way of doing something and doing it with others. Because just like that mind control skateboard, you can't do anything super innovative in a vacuum or by yourself. I didn't do that by myself. An amazing team. There were 3 of us, but it was great. It was still a team, and it was still diverse viewpoints, and it was still all of those great things. There's a huge difference between saying you do open source and actually participating. And if you're an enterprise, saving money with open source is not doing open source, nor is it supporting it. That's just the truth. So, reaction and response. This is really important because several of you want to react right now, and several of you will hopefully consider responding instead. This is the key to building that community. The key is you have to be able to listen to others, even when you've already been down that path. And last night I heard 2 discussions, 2 separate discussions in where someone was saying, oh my gosh, I really want to participate. I had this idea, I read this problem you're having, I was in the forums, and blah, 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 blah. And then the person, you could tell, was just sitting there, and they'd already made up their mind. They've already been down this path. Well, that's great, but maybe not in the same way. You have to shut up and you have to listen. You have to understand that reaction is involuntary, and response is voluntary. And good community managers know the difference. Good open source leaders know the difference between reacting and responding, right? A great non-open source story about reaction and response, AntennaGate. Look at what Steve Jobs did. Everybody was talking about the stupid phone. You put your hand around it, your body's a bag of water, boom, the phone doesn't pick up a signal. And they didn't say a word for weeks. There was no need to jump out and say something. There was no need to jump out and be defensive. They took their time, put together an argument, and then he basically got out on stage and said, hey, I had to fix the entire cell industry, now I gotta fix the towers too? You're welcome, I spent $100 million. And it was ridiculous, but it was a classic example of a response. And everybody said, oh, that makes total sense. No, it didn't. It was just really well thought through. But often with open source stuff, we react. And here's a great example in the enterprise. I led open source at BMC Software. That was the last job I had before I started Chaotic Moon. And while I was at BMC, I would travel around and talk to customers. And you know who reacts? Attorneys react still. We're not past that already? Come on. And the other thing is execs, CIOs react. And they react in one of 2 ways. They react, they're going to save a bunch of money. Not always true. Open source is cheap, not free. And number 2, they react in they can't have that in their valuable infrastructure. Usually those companies all run Microsoft and everybody carries a BlackBerry. How many people have BlackBerries? Don't be ashamed, one of you has a BlackBerry. You don't fall in the harassment policy, and I will be harassing you the entire event. All right? So I said I'd get us back on track. So the last thing, and this is really important, is the difference between control and influence. Open source and being a community leader is not about control. It's not about you getting credit for everything. It's not about you getting credit for anything. All right? I've been associated with dozens and dozens of projects. My name's not even on the majority of them, right? It's a word of mouth thing. People know you're a good person, you did this stuff, you've helped, you've done something valuable. That's important, okay? Controlling the community, controlling the stuff, which is what every company apparently in enterprise software still tries to do through a variety of strange dual licensing mechanisms and weird charges and service things and limiting features. That is a horrible way to go in general, but it's a really, really shitty way to treat your community. A really shitty way. Influence is king. Influence is where it is. You don't want to tell the community where to go. You want to give them some general guides as to where they can go and what they can build. You don't want to tell your CIO, this is what you have to do in the infrastructure. You want to just let him get to the right answer himself, because this is a great way to do things. Open source is amazing. And we live in a time, as you just heard, where you can do that so easily and so fast. You can prove things out and accelerate things, and there's open learning, and there's all of these things, all things open, that are really, really valuable. But we still follow all the same habits that I saw a bunch of people doing in 1997. We still follow habits that I saw last time we were in Columbia in 2010 or 11 or whenever that was. I have a horrible memory for dates. So this is cheesy, but I want you to think about this. If we took what Kennedy said and we said, ask not what your community can do for you, which is what most enterprise open source people do, but what you can do for your community, it could really be that simple. Because it's not about the me, it's about the we. Who gives a shit what I do? Who gives a shit what you do? I mean, I care a little bit. So we had drinks. But it's about taking all of this and getting, together and working together on it. And there's still so much control instead of influence. There's so much reaction response. If you're a community manager and someone puts some flame post, all right, on your mailing list or in your forum or tweet, whatever the hell they do these days, you kids. If you respond within 5 or 10 minutes, I know you didn't think about that response at all. You got offended. Your feelings got hurt. You know what? Shock. Maybe your software does suck, especially if you have thousands of people contributing it. There might be a legitimate complaint there. Doesn't mean people should be assholes. It does mean you should think about how you're nurturing and growing those things. And in the enterprise, this is incredibly important, because the enterprise is where we still need so much ground made up with the open source movement. Okay? Part of the reason I got frustrated and left was I went around and talked to the Global 2000. They're all like, yep, we save money, or we can save money. And that was it. And their answers and their view on this whole thing were ridiculous. I was like another time machine. So how do you do this? It all starts with you, and it all starts with the open discussion. So for this event, I talked to Todd, and I'm going to not leave today like I was going to. I'm going to stay the entire event, and I will help any of you with anything that you want. I will rant at you for hours, and then we'll have like a drink, and then it gets weird. But I will help any of you with the project. And the reason I say this is because I said this when we were in Columbia, and I threw out this project, Project Awesome. Were any of you in Columbia? Yeah, any of you remember it? The 8 people that said, don't worry, I'm going to email you today. And then the next day said, I meant today. And then a couple weeks later, I was like, hey, I'm just curious, you're going to email me? And they're just like, well, I'm really busy at work, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And then I never heard from anybody. But this time, I'd like to see something happen. And what I'd like to see happen is a lot easier. So I recently went to an event called Hatch. Hatch is a really unique experience. It's like actors and actresses and musicians and tech people, and it's weird. And it's another one of those really inclusive events. But it's inclusive with purpose, and I was really impressed. And the reason is there's 150 people there, and you get to talk for 10 to 15 minutes with 150 different people. And it is eye-opening. And there are hundreds of you here, and all of you have different experience, different objectives, different things you can do. And so here's what I'd like to encourage everyone to do. Over the next 2 days, I would like you to take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, to meet 10 other people, 5 minutes each, okay? Hear what their challenges are in open source, and then commit to spending a little bit of time, not with them, because you can't do that, just go off and think about it, write it down, thinking about their problem, and then getting back to them and saying, you know what, I thought about this, I don't have an answer, or I have an idea, or I can contribute, or I can't, or I can this, or I can that, whatever the case may be. Just 5 minutes, 10 people. You can easily do that, all right? I know, because a lot of you are going to waste 4 hours at the bar tonight, all right? So what I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to invest that time. I'm actually asking you not to say you're part of a community, but to actually be part of a community. And that means not talking about yourself, and that means not talking about your project. That means listening to other people talk about themselves and talk about their project. I think that would be a valuable use of your time. I think all of you would get a lot more out of this event if you did it. So that's your call to action. And so to help, at some point Todd will announce, you can come on up because I'm finished. Todd will announce, we'll set up drinks tonight or tomorrow night or something where if you have nowhere else to do this, I'll be waiting and I'll help facilitate all of it. Because you guys are what open source is about. And you guys are the future of open source. And right now, honestly, you guys scare the shit out of me. I'm not so thrilled about that future. I know that's scary. Nobody wants to laugh. That was the nervous laughter, right? And a bunch of people were like, fuck this guy. That's ridiculous. But it's true. Again, there's so much data. I was so shocked to find out how little things have progressed in the enterprise, even though we've celebrated so many of these minor victories. Here's how we progress. Meet each other. Listen to each other. Work together and do something fucking amazing. And if not, stay in your cube, in your boring enterprise job, and by the way, you should get a treadmill desk, because sitting will take like 8 or 10 years off your life, and don't do anything. And that's a fine option too. But if that's what you're gonna do, then just leave the fucking conference now. Just go. And let everybody else who's actually interested in doing stuff be here and take advantage of this unique opportunity with so many of you in the same place to do something amazing. Thank you very much.